First of all, let me start off by giving thanks and praise to the Most High Creator, ancient the days Elohelu. No Muhammad, Selassie's a Jesus for you to pray to. They hate you, trying to say everything moving will awake soon. They'll be gone by day 2. See a palm in the arm and the shape too. Slaves move, staying calm like I can't lose. I brought a can full of soldiers. We can snap show, yeah, I got an army of shake soon. Lung do all the war, how I make moves. Pay dues from the part of the day. Who would have fought the armies of the true living God? We YAH'S soldiers move up until I make room. Our enemies like bread. I'ma need a 4-place moon knife and a hang too. Hebrew the light, some spice, say he ain't you. I'm Yehuda-Dean, ask Edom if it ain't true. I set a bait like I'm trying to catch lake food. Pray for patience cause I hate to debate fools. The time is coming, you'll see about today's news. America is now following the slave rules. All the birds are against the white one. Take them out like the 8-ball when you play pool. We inside to make a more. With the ice to be a dyke if you want to be gay cool. Babylon, yo, wrong. Too many nations to name, you done slain where you came to. Probably want to send me out to somewhere out of space. Move me out, bring me back, save it tunes till they fake doom. So my lineage is chosen. I try to have a harder day than integrity of Joseph. Fake fool like Abraham, strong like Samson and meek like Moses. Watch this like Daniel, perfect like Noah and Job. I hope I can walk like Enoch, come back like Elijah, turn off the giant. While all my lions waiting, awaken the sleeping giant. 400 years in the comatose, the soul reviving. No more dry bones, alone, hopeless and rotten. Instead it's stone, headed home like it's no other. Breathe blessings and by the quaalude. Creator earth since they say man look like him, the angels. Modern science, the fire cycle, children of Zion. Watch out, they got to stop, so wait for the coming of Shiloh. Warrior music looping, my YISraEL inspire movement. 16 inspiring kings will rise up like Constantine. Break it down, babbles, tower like Joe and fine. Brimstone, my YAH, a warrior. Proud out the rubble like we practice contortion. Abort the wicked, Owls of Edom and Esau, YISraEL, ways of cancerous. Cut out the moon watcher with pins, cut out the amethyst. Damaging these amateurs, y'all spinning with this whirlwind. Cause of y'all's arm, covered by seraphims. How good is it to rob a brethren and give the earth its medicine? YAH is a top, there's none ahead of them. Wisdom of YAH, better than Ruby, check my verbs 8. Beauty of YAH is Jake's wife, Hebrew Beyonce. Righteous is my mind state, rhyming till I'm by the gates. Still the faith to those who will not praise the day done passed away. Praises to my YAH, no one's wrath they couldn't escape. But see, like to my Elohim, y'all wills we speak face to face. They calling us the blessed ones, but we waxing fat on just to run. But if you move, the rest will come with up text of us, or next will run. What did it is coming, just getting you numb. Watching they tongues stretch for fun. They're gonna feel the heat will reflect our gun, leaving them lame and deaf and dumb. The heart is out my chest, my son. A giant of black till lexicon. An animal beating my chest like blood. We leaving their bodies left and dumb while the wolves to see the elected ones. So protect them, just to the wretched ones. See haters, I expected some. Like I thought it affected none. Like. We got them eyes to detect your bombs. Like. We got you scared sick, so we detect the runs. Since you getting chased by a million black folks who've been packed in slums. Who's hungry and for fun, I'll break your legs, backs and thumbs. So we take them to the maximum. We smashing them. Smacking their wives, taking their spoons, we attacking them. I hear with the light, our flight become second to none, so come. Our people is calm, their niggas and y'all broke it down like both of your ankles is sprung.
Our Genesis started in the book of Exodus. Born in America cause Yahweh is correcting us. He commanded us to be holy in Leviticus. Then we multiplied to where you couldn't even number us. But since we refuse his philosophy, he gonna consume us with curses from Deuteronomy. It's all about the quality, never about the quantity. To the last 5 letters from Israelite, you got YAH'S elite. 1 from a family and 2 from a city. What make up the remnant who Yahweh with pity? He visits the iniquity to the seeds of them that hated him, showing his mercy to thousands of them that wait for him. My Genesis started with the crucifix. I never knew I was worshiping graven images. No sacrifices of righteousness, only wickedness. Man-made doctrine is all of what religion is. No addition or contradicting what YAH has mentioned. It ain't no need for multiplication or long division. No subtraction or any other type of mathematics. Just trusting Yahweh's word and what he say will happen.
Let's go. It's the delight of my soul, the only thing that controls. This is the sweetest of roll that I ate in this hole. You know it's the Almighty, the one who's always right. You see the light in the sky, you know it's day. And then it's night when the lesser light shine. It's the most sublime, the most profound, the illest sound never heard round this town, around this globe. It be the Torah of Yahweh Elohim. Do you understand the things that I speak in these days of the last? It done past when these people about to fall off the earth like grass with it, like the flower fades. You know how it is these days. People getting played, being told lies of age, but my words they spray, proclaim the most high name. And you know how it is. We ain't playing no games. No, you give me this word, so it beats the fire, and y'all be like wood burned up. Tell me that you could ever test black. Never that. Step back. Don't make me grab the cat. Quickly they go click to the clack. Y'all cats see how it all comes all into one meaning of truth. It be Yahweh. I'm up in the booth doing what I do, teaching my youth. Y'all cats better know the truth in here. There's no spears, there's no squares. There's only one Yahweh, the Elohim. I'm his son, IshiYAH, Malak, and I'm done.
Shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, giving all praise and honor to the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is, by saying hallelujah. Praise the mighty Yah. Yah is righteous, Yah is holy, and let Yahweh be magnified. Once again, the creator has allowed us to come before you another day, bringing to you his great, holy, and exalted words, even the words of truth. My name is Mowreh IshYAH of the house of Israel, located right here in Cincinnati, Ohio, 1907 Vine Street, bringing to you nothing but the truth. And yes, it is true. All we're going to do is tell you the truth, for Yah ordained me to tell you the truth, and this is what I'm going to do. And who is this Yah? Yah is the creator of the heaven, the earth, the sea, and all that is therein is. Yah is the Elohim of our fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and YIsraEL, whom you may know as Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Yah is our king, he's our judge, he's our lawgiver, and Yah is our only Savior, and not just of Israel. Yah is the Savior of the world. And I praise the mighty Yah for once again allowing me to come before you, bringing to you his truth. The brothers have been doing, the teachers have been doing a great and marvelous job filling in, bringing to you nothing but the truth. And when I left off teaching, I was teaching on the various books of the scriptures. And we dealt with the book of Genesis, and we will have an opportunity to recap it. We dealt with the book of Exodus. But then we were getting into the book of Leviticus, and I got some really, really good things for you in the book of Leviticus, as well as the latter part of Exodus, before we get into Numbers and Deuteronomy. But before I deal with any of the books of the scriptures, my daughter had asked me a very important question that I felt like I needed to address today. She asked me, what is the purpose, the expectation, the goal of raising our children? What is the purpose? What is the goal? What is the expectation? And I let her know that the expectation for our children, as well as their goals, as well as their purpose. The scripture teach us, train up a child in a way it should go, and when he is old, he shall not depart thereof. So children must go through a certain type of training. This training that our children must undertake is, I call it, the order of the Hebrews, or the order of the way of the Hebrews, rather. Because there's a certain order that is fixed in the scriptures that our children have to be trained in from day one. So we're going to dive right into showing you how that order look, how you should be raising your children. But this is what you're going to find. You're going to find that this is not only the way you should be raising your children, this is the way in which Yah, the essence of what Yah is looking from you. And Yah deals with cycles. He repeat everything. And so this way of the Hebrew should be cycled just like everything else. Well, first let me show you why this is so important. If you go to the book of Jeremiah, the 6th chapter, as I stated before, we got some good things, teachings ready and prepared for you concerning the various books of the law. But today we're going to deal with the Hebrew way of things. And the only reason why we're not just saying the Hebrew way of things, because there's a certain order to the way of the Hebrews. You just can't do things in any kind of way. As a matter of fact, that's exactly why we find ourselves in great confusion, where the crooked things have to be made straight. In the book of Jeremiah, the 6th chapter, the 16th verse, this is what it says.
Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16. Thus saith Yahweh, stand you in the ways.
Stand you in the ways.
And see.
And what way are we speaking about? We're talking about the order of the way of Hebrews, not just any Hebrew, but Hebrew Israelites. Go ahead.
Stand you in the ways and see.
And look and see.
And ask for the old paths.
And then once you do this, you got to ask for the old paths.
Where is the good way?
Because that's where you're going to find the good way.
And walk therein.
And once you find it, you got to walk therein.
And you shall find rest for your soul.
And you're going to find rest for your souls. But nobody want to look to the past. Nobody want to go back to the old ways. And nobody want to listen to the elders. Here it is. I'm a teacher who's been teaching for about 30 years now. And in these 30 years that I've been teaching the Creator's Word, and not just teaching, if I've been teaching approximately about 30 years, of course you know I'm not 30 years old. So I'm a lot older than 30. Which means this, that I've been around, I've seen things, I've experienced things, I've learned things. And so I can show people things, tell people things. But then you will have a younger generation that don't want to hear nothing from the old, nothing from the age, nothing from the experience. They know it all. To the extent that when you go to try to teach them and show them, they will challenge it as if they are the experience. They're the old. And there is no prominence that you have over them. When the scripture says, clear, plainly, it didn't say, it says, thus is Yahweh, stand in the way. You want to know what way. And see, what are you looking at? And ask for the new paths. It didn't say ask for the new paths. It said ask for the old paths. Now, who's going to know the old paths better than the old? Better than the elders? Better than the age? Better than the ancient? And let me tell you the answer you get when you ask for these old paths. And it says you're going to find rest for your souls, but watch the very next thing it says.
But they said.
Now, this ain't what you said, and this is not what I'm saying. This is what Yahweh's saying they said, because Yahweh know everything. And what do they say?
But they said, we will not walk therein.
I'm not doing that. I'm not going back to the old paths. I'm not dealing with that. You just don't know. There's a new time. It's a new dispensation. We're smarter now. We don't even have to go to the library today. We can just Google it. So they said, we're not going to walk then. We're not walking like they used to walk. And what do it say?
Also, I set watchmen over you, saying, listen to the sound of the trumpet. But they said, we will not listen.
Not only we're not going to walk therein, but we're not even going to listen. No wonder the people don't know the old ways. No wonder they're not listening to the old ways. No wonder the crooked things have to be made straight. Because the younger generations think they know more than the older generations, the elders. They think they got it all figured out. And nothing, and I mean nothing, is figured out at all. And this is what you got to know about the order of the way of a Hebrew. And why do I say the order of the way? Because there were certain things ordered by Yahweh from the beginning. The Hebrews did not come up with their own way, even though they're doing their own ways today. No, their way was ordered. Did not it say, stand you in the ways and see and ask for the old paths? These old paths were nothing that came from a man, and there was nothing that came from somebody old. This came from the Ancient of Days himself. In other words, he was before the days even came. He the one made days. So I want to give you the proper perspective on this lesson, the order of the ways of Hebrews. It was my daughter who asked me, what is the expectation of our children? What are their goals? What are their purpose? What is this thing all about when it comes to our children? It's easy to say, well, train up a child in the way it should go, and when he's old, he shall not depart there. Train him up how? Then you might say, well, according to the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments. Well, that is how you execute the way. But without knowing the order of the way, you have no vision. You have no vision. And where there is no vision, the people perish. And let me show you this way. The first way, I'm going to show you all the ways, and I'm going to show you how significant and essential this is to our people. We're in the book of Jeremiah, so let us turn to the book of Jeremiah, the 29th chapter. And even though I'm starting in Jeremiah, I'm going to take it all the way back to Genesis, just so you can see for yourself how old this way is. Jeremiah 29. Here it is. We're in the last days. And this way still is not being executed. And this is the foundation of being a Hebrew. Watch what the scripture says in Jeremiah 29:4.
Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, unto all that are carried away captives, whom I have caused to be carried away from Jerusalem to Babylon.
In other words, this is Yahweh giving instructions to a people who will become slaves. And what is Yahweh telling the slaves to do? The 5th verse.
Build ye houses and dwell in them.
The first thing he told the Hebrews, even in slavery, build ye houses and dwell in them. Now, what lesson, what family, and what man is teaching this to his children? And not only teaching this to his children, but in addition to that, he's demonstrating to his children that this is what must be done first. Why you think we call it the order? Because there's a certain order, there's certain things you got to do first. Then you can get to the next thing. But this is number one. Build ye houses and dwell in them. And you're going to find building a house is not just like what our people think. They think building a house is going to get some lumber and just building a house. Well, I'm going to show you otherwise. Number 2.
And plant gardens.
And now this, and go ahead.
And eat the fruit of them.
Number 2. After you build your house, then it says plant gardens and eat the fruit of them. You don't plant the garden before you build the house. That makes no kind of sense. Build ye houses, dwell in them, plant ye gardens, and eat the fruit of them. How you going to plant a garden and you don't have no water? You don't have no way to take care of them, to nurture them, to raise them. This is a full-time job planting gardens, because every day you got to attend to them. Every day you got to protect them from the elements and the various things that would attack them. Who's going to do that? The one that planted. Who is that? It's supposed to be you, the Hebrew. That was number 2. Number 3.
Take ye wives.
And this is where our people get in trouble at. This is where the trouble begins. In other words, number 3 has become number 1 for most of our people. They get them a woman, get them a wife. And then they try to get a house, food. No, that's out of order. Totally out of order. And this is why many of us are out of order today. Because we refused to seek the old paths and walk therein. No wonder we're not finding rest for our souls. And watch what it says. It says, take ye wives and do what?
And beget sons and daughters.
My goodness, here it is. Get you a wife and then beget sons and daughters. We getting sons and daughters and still not getting wives. We won't even marry the woman, but she got kids. She got babies that many other fathers are not even taking care of them. They have become very irresponsible and don't even know their kids. Some of them don't have a relationship with their children. And some of them, it's the mother who won't allow the father to have a relationship with their children. And then some of them, the father is locked up. But this is out of order. You don't get kids before or children before you get the wife. And we have become very backwards. But that's number 3, in having children, sons and daughters. It's number 4. And watch this.
And take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands.
Yeah, in other words, marry them off with like-minded and responsible sons and daughters in your community. And that's a very important step, which is number 5. In other words, you want them to produce your increase. They had an increase with you. Now, to get a good increase, their children will have children. Now the children having children, but the children didn't know their father. The grandchildren don't know their father. The great-great-grandchildren don't know their father. And there's generations of children never to be known by their origin, who produced them, where they come from. No wonder our people don't know the way. But those who do know, they don't listen, because the generations that come after the older generation, because this is how they teach you in Babylon, the generation that come after believe that they know more. They know better. And Yahweh never told us to look to the future to see the great possibilities of what we would know. This is a heathenistic point of view. They would tell you the sky's the limit. You can go far. Shoot for the stars. But little do they know, the simple things in life that has worked throughout the annals of history has always been a successful path. And all our people doing is repeating the mess and the wickedness and evilness of the past. But they're not walking in where the good way is. Now watch number 6 in the 7th verse.
And seek the peace of the city. Wait, we didn't read all that.
Okay, number 6 again.
That they may bear sons and daughters, that you may be increased there and not diminished.
Yeah, you don't want to be diminished.
And seek the peace of the city, where I have caused you to be carried away captives. And pray unto Yahweh for it. For in the peace thereof shall ye have peace.
Yeah, in other words, you want to pray for the peace. And our people don't have peace at all. At all. No peace at all. Today, a man can go home, a wife can go home, and whoever go home, even the children, and they going to be faced with a bunch of slamming doors, cussing, loud talk, hollering, not unity, but disunity, people mad, people not happy, and the people crying and fussing, and then they grew up thinking that's the way. That's just part of life. That's what man and woman do. No, it is part of life, but that's not the way that a child or children supposed to be trained up in. This is outright foolishness and madness. Who will break the madness of this chain? I see women all the time. They just have all kind of anger and attitudes and mad. I see a bunch of brothers. They just not happy. They can't be peaceful. But who will break the cycle? I don't care what it is. You can stump your toe, and that can ruin your whole day if you want it to. You can step on the wrong thing. But if you don't know how to control yourself, your whole day can be ruined. But if you have vision on the essence and building blocks of life, you won't even allow your heart, your mind, your spirit, or your hands to deviate your life and the future of your children's life. If you're teaching them anything that does not correspond to these very principles of building, then you're not teaching them the order or the way of a Hebrew. You caught up in something else, but not in the way that they should go. And this is in captivity. But what about war? Well, let me show you. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, because we spending a lot of time doing a lot of things that bring about a lot of vanity. It just don't mean nothing at all. And the very important thing that you should be about and should be putting your hands to is being forsaken and neglected. Watch this. In the book of Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter, let's start at the very first verse because I want you to understand what this is saying.
When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and the people more than you, be not afraid of them, for Yahweh your Elohim is with you, which brought you up out of the land of Egypt. And it shall be, when you have come near to the battle, that the priest shall approach and speak to the people, and shall say to them, Hear, O Israel, you approach this day to a battle against your enemies. Let not your hearts faint, fear not, and do not tremble, neither be you terrified of them. For Yahweh your Elohim is he that goes with you to fight for you against your enemies to save you. And the officers shall speak to the people, saying.
Now, and watch what the officers start saying, because you would think they just gonna give them a pep rally. They just gonna give them a just inspire them to fight. No, what the officers did was brought them back to the very basic principles of the essence of life. And what is that? The order of a way of a Hebrew. Now they about to fight, but watch what the officers say to them.
What man is there that has built a new house and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he dies in the battle, and another man dedicates it.
You see how important a house is to a man, to his family, to his direction, to his origin and beginning, and how he will go to have a foundation and an establishment in the earth. The first thing that came out of the officer's mouth is about a man's house. And did not we just read in the book of Jeremiah, the 29th chapter, build ye houses? That was in captivity. But this is not in captivity. This is in war. And the very first thing that Yahweh wants you on your mind is about your house? Yes, he do. Because when the war is all over, all you have is what you have built. So if you have a new house and have not dedicated it, go home before another man dedicated. Continue reading.
And what man is he that has planted a vineyard and has not yet eaten of it? Let him also go and return to his house, lest he dies in the battle, and another man eats of it.
Don't you see the building blocks? And people ask me, what should we teach our children? What curriculum should we have for our children? This is the curriculum. They need to know everything about building a house. And I'm going to show you what it takes. The principles it takes to build anything, especially your house. And then it talk about planting a garden again. How can you be established, truly established, without these two things? These things are essential, especially for the next thing that you would do in your life. And what is that? The 7th verse.
And what man is he there that has betrothed a wife and has not taken her? Let him go and return to his house, lest he dies in the battle, and another man takes her.
These things are the very foundation of the way in which you seek the old paths. This is the foundation. Because once you get a wife, then you can have sons and daughters. Then you can raise them, and then they have sons and daughters. And then they can raise them. And this cycle is repeated. And then you begin to have cities where you seek the peace and pray for the peace for it. This is the way that you have rest for your souls. But this is the way our people say we're not going to walk therein. And why? Because the younger generation is not going to listen to the older generation anyway. The women think they know more. The young bucks think they know better. And it's hard to tell young people the truth. You can tell them, but they're not going to listen. Because they know better. And they think, except for the humble know. They listen. And then they can repeat and execute. But this is the foundation of how children is supposed to be raised. And all this is done under the laws, commandments, statutes, and judgments of Yahweh. Because every order have a way in which it must be done. Yahweh didn't just give you an order without telling you how to execute that order. And we're going to get into how you execute the various orders of Yahweh. But before we get into that, let me show you where else you can find this same building blocks in the book of Genesis. In the book of Genesis, and we're going to start reading in Genesis, the 2nd chapter. Starting at the 4th verse.
These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that Yahweh Elohim made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For Yahweh Elohim had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to fill the ground.
In other words, do y'all know what this is saying? In other words, why have a garden? You don't have nobody to keep it. You don't have enough. That's why you never build a garden before you can even have a house. He said he didn't even allow it to grow until he had a man there for the garden. And let's see how this went down. Continue reading.
But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. And Yahweh Elohim formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. And Yahweh Elohim planted a garden eastward in Eden. And there he put the man whom he had formed.
So he put this man in this garden, and undoubtedly the man not only was put in the garden to dress it, to till it, to take care of it, but he was in this garden because this is where he lived also. He lived in the garden. This was his dwelling. This was his house. Did not the scripture say, build ye houses and what? Dwell therein? Where you think he lived? In the garden. And watch what it says.
And Yahweh formed Yahweh formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. And Yahweh planted, I already read that, sorry. In verse 9, and out of the ground made Yahweh Elohim to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah, because now he have a man, so Yahweh started making everything grow. But he needed a man there to have dominion over this garden, to take care of it, to dress it, to till it, to protect it. Continue reading.
Verse 10, and a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it was parted and became into 4 heads.
And that's why I tell people just think you building a garden, but do you know what it takes to build a garden? How you going to build a garden and you don't have no water? And you don't have no good soil? And you don't have the time to keep it and watch it and protect it and nourish it? Gardens get sick. Gardens get attacked. Gardens get things that if you're not paying close attention to it, then the garden can die. This is the very first thing a man had to be responsible for and try to take care of. And from this responsibility, from this job, from this work, then man was able to do greater and bigger things, because now man have the experience of what it takes to take care of a living thing. And one of those essential things was water. But continue reading.
Verse 11, the name of the first is Pison, that is which encompasses the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold, and the gold of that land is good. There's bdellium and the onyx stone, and the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is that encompasses the whole land of Ethiopia. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel, that is which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him into the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden you may freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it. For in the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely die. And Yahweh Elohim said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him.
Yeah, so in other words, now man got a house. Man got a garden. So it's only befitting that Yahweh will make someone for man and give her the special name of the helpmeet. Because now that man have all these responsibilities of building and planning, it only makes sense to me that he would need some help. And that it would not be good for him to be alone. Not only I think that, more importantly, Yahweh thought that. And so Yahweh would do something about it. How can we raise our children any other way? How can we teach them any other thing? Here it is, our people sending their children off to school, off to college, and not one thing is talked about build ye a house. Nothing is said about that. Not from the parents, not from the schools, and not from anybody. And definitely nothing is being said about plant ye gardens. Who do you think this got to come from? The Hebrews. And who do they get it from? Yahweh. And how do they go about executing this thing? The order of the way of the Hebrews. You have to order this thing. And the crooked things got to be made straight. Because we have allowed ourselves to drink the wine of confusion of Babylon. And now Babylon is in darkness. The earth is in darkness. But the Hebrews are in gross darkness. And all of us are in a deep sleep of ignorance. And watch what happens. Continue reading.
Verse 19. And out of the ground Yahweh Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helpmeet for him.
Yeah, that wasn't found a helpmeet for him. Today, the helpmeet think you to help, the husband to help, the man to help, and they the master. I know a lot of them don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. That's how they think. Baby, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you go get this? Can you go get that? And now all of a sudden, you just a help. But watch what it says.
And Yahweh Elohim caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which Yahweh Elohim had taken from man made he woman, and brought her to the man. And Adam said, This is now bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall join to his wife, and they shall be one flesh.
They shall be one flesh, because the joining of together must take place. Why? Because now he has established a foundation that must be built upon. The further building is getting a woman and then having sons and daughters. And marrying them sons and daughters off to sons and daughters, that you may increase and not diminish. These are the ways of Hebrew. And it's not just the way of Hebrews. Let me show you something. Watch this in the book of Proverbs, the 9th chapter. I want you to see this. Proverbs 9. In the book of Proverbs, the 9th chapter, starting at the very first verse.
Wisdom has built her house.
In other words, it's not just the way of a Hebrew. Even wisdom has built her house. Go ahead.
She has hewn out her 7 pillars.
And she's hewn out her 7 pillars.
She has killed her beasts.
She killed her beast.
She has mingled her wine.
You can't have no wine without a vineyard. You can't have no beast without livestock. Go ahead.
She has also furnished her table.
Why? Somebody got to eat. Who you going to feed? Go ahead.
She has sent forth her maidens.
And who is her maidens? Who is her maidens? Go ahead.
She cries upon the highest places of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Whosoever is simple, let him turn and hear. As for him that wants understanding, she says to him, Come eat of my bread, and drink of the wine which I have mingled. Forsake the foolish and live, and go in by the way of understanding.
Yeah, this is what wisdom is teaching, because she even had to build her house. You're going to eat bread, but why not the bread of wisdom? You're going to drink wine. Why can't you drink the wine that wisdom has mingled? The wine that you're drinking will not allow you to forsake the foolish and live. The wine that you're drinking make you foolish and die. This is what we got to learn. We got to go back to the beginning. Watch this. In the book of Proverbs 24. I just want you to see this. Because not only the Hebrews has to build, Even wisdom have built her house. The third verse.
Through wisdom is a house built, and by understanding it is established.
Man, through wisdom is a house built. How you going to build without wisdom? And wisdom, the only way to get it, you got to seek it. And the only way to seek it, you got to seek the old paths. What wisdom is it for you to get tomorrow that is never promised to you? The wisdom that you're seeking, you have to go back. You have to go to the old paths. You have to go to the age and the ancient and the elders. And how can you go forward without them? See, if we was in the right type of society, do you realize the younger generation wouldn't even speak around older people, elders, people who are aged? Here, you try to tell somebody younger something now, they will debate you. No, that ain't it. No, I know. No, well, my opinion matter. Well, I got my own mind. And I got my own way. And I can be right and you can be wrong. And of course, eventually, you know what the elders and the ancient and the older people say? Well, yeah, you go ahead and do your own. You do your own thing. Find your own way, and then you'll see. You'll see what you think you got, you don't have at all. Not even close to having it. Because you refuse to listen. And this is where our people are today. And the only thing that can help you is wisdom, because that's how our house is built. And understanding, that's how you establish it. This is how you teach children. This is the order of the way of Hebrews. You got to start at number 1. And this is a step that's skipped twice overfold. They go straight to the woman, not to the building, not to the planting. Watch this. In the book of Proverbs, the 14th chapter. Since we're in Proverbs. The very first verse.
Every wise woman buildeth her house.
See, it says every wise woman builds her house. In other words, this is not a mistake of a wise woman, because every wise woman builds her house. In other words, you won't see a wise woman making mistakes in building, because every wise woman. But somebody would debate me and say, well, it don't say all. But if it said all wise women builds her house, then they would say, well, it don't say every. Every wise woman builds her house. So if your house is not being built, let me show you what's being done.
But the foolish plucks it down with her hands.
It's either one or the other. Either you building or you pluck it down. Well, why can't that be the man? How you know the man is not plucking it down? Because it says every wise woman builds her house, but the foolish plucks it down with her hands. Because if she wise, irregardless of the fool of a man she have, she still can build. You might ask yourself, why? How could that be? How can a wise woman supersede the foolishness of a man who's supposed to be the head, who's supposed to, the last decision is with him? Well, let me show you. In the book of Ecclesiastes, turn there. To show you that this scripture that we're reading is the truth. Every wise woman builded her house, but the foolish pluck it down with her hand. In the book of Ecclesiastes, in the 2nd chapter, Ecclesiastes 2, and watch what this says. The 12th verse.
And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly.
Yeah, Solomon said, I just wanted to know wisdom. I wanted to know madness and folly.
For what can a man do that comes after the king?
Yeah, what can he do after the king? King done did it all, man. And that's what we be trying to tell the younger generation, man. What can you do that we haven't done? We done did. Here it is. We got this young people, man, and you try to tell them something. No. See, that's not me. That's not you. You're a man, right? What you gonna do that a man ain't done? I think different. You think different? I never had seen a man that think different than another man. Every man thinks. But they come up with these slick little new sayings. Don't realize these new sayings were old sayings by some rebellious little people, younger people, that was telling the other older people. And you know what they did? They laughed too. They laughed at them. And Solomon said, what can be done after the king who done did it all? Watch what it says.
Even that which has been already done.
Even that which have already been done. If we were wise, all we would do is listen to our elders, to the older generation. I don't know no old man but a fool that would tell younger people, look here, man, spend all your money and go broke. Just get credit and use it dangerously and badly. Just sleep with a bunch of as many women as you can. Have a bunch of babies and don't take care of them. Live on the streets. That's not the advice of older people. When older people give advice, typically speaking, for the most part, it's generally good advice. Or less, you're a fool. And we got many fools out there. But this thing already been done, and why can't we get the younger generation to understand that? As soon as you start telling them something, they mad instantly. Watch what it says.
Then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as far as light exceeds darkness, excels darkness.
This was the wisest man said. How do I know a wise woman trumps a foolish man? They talking about he don't do right. This man is this and this man is that, and he don't fear Yahweh. and he don't do this and he don't do that. And they got all the complaints. And I asked them one thing. Do you fear Yah? Do you have wisdom? Because if you have wisdom and you fear Yah, then the house can be built. For the scripture say, every wise woman builded her house. But the scriptures also say, but the foolish plucked it down with her hands. And why? Because wisdom excels folly as far as light excels darkness. They had two opposite ends of the spectrum. A wise person can see the foolishness even before it comes, because they already know how a fool think. Foolishly. Watch the very next verse.
The wise man's eyes are in his head.
See, a wise man's eyes, they are in his head. In other words, everything he's thinking, he's already seeing it in real time. I'm seeing the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm seeing the things that I'm supposed to say. I'm seeing the direction in which I'm supposed to walk. I'm seeing how this thing needs to play out, go down, and how it should happen. But
the fool walks in darkness.
in other words, they're going to tell you how to do things, and they just walk in darkness. They don't even know, never even experienced it. Never did it. And they're going to tell you how it's supposed to be done. Well, I think it should be this way. Well, have you did this before? No. But I heard about it. I read about it. Or I know about it. How you know? And really, the only thing you know is that you're walking in darkness. Because that's what a fool do. Walk in darkness. Watch this same Ecclesiastes 2 and 4. Watch this. Start at the third verse.
I sought in my heart to give myself unto wine, yet acquainting my heart with wisdom.
And our people doing that today.
And to lay hold on folly.
Yeah, and they doing that today.
Till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their lives. I made me great works.
He said, I made me great works. And what was the first great work that he made?
I built me houses.
That was the very first great work that he made. And did not we say the order of the way of a Hebrew is what? Build ye houses. This king could have said anything. I made me great works. I built the tallest bridge in the world. He could have said anything. But he said, I built me houses. And what was the second great work that he said?
I planted me vineyards.
I planted me vineyards. How can a man be established without doing these two things? And we think the other things that we're doing is great. Look at this great thing that I done. Well, did you build your house? Did you plant your garden? And not only that, the most important thing, and are you teaching your children to do this? And let me tell you, no, children are not being taught to do this. This is not the curriculum that our children are learning. The order, the way of a Hebrew. They're not learning this. They're learning nothing about building. What they're learning is about cartoons, the internet, PlayStation, and a lot of other child stuff that will get them nothing. Then you're throwing a little math and a little reading, a little science, a little geography, and it still won't help them to build because you never had order. This is the king. I built me houses. I planted me vineyards. 5th verse.
I made me gardens and orchards, and I planted trees in them of all kind of fruits.
Mm-hmm.
I made me pools of water, to water therewith the woods that brings forth trees.
Yeah, how you going to build a garden? You don't even have no water supply. You don't have no well. You don't have nothing to take care of it. Go ahead.
I got me servants and maidens.
I got servants and maidens because how you going to build and then don't have no help?
And I had servants born in my house.
And then he had increase. Servants born in this house.
Also, I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me.
In other words, this is the blueprint. This is the way, the order of the way of a Hebrew. But this way has been lost to our people. And the young will not listen to the old. Here it is. In the ancient time, when someone that was elder walk in a room, our people stood up out of honor and respect. Why? Because that was the order of the way of a Hebrew. Today, you can walk in a room, I don't care how old you are. You can be 900 years old. You got people, they ain't going to stand up. They got too much pride for that. They too holy for that. And they know too much for that. So they ain't going to stand up. The wife ain't going to stand up for the husband. The kids ain't going to stand up for their mother or father. And the brothers and the sisters ain't going to stand up for no person of honor, in position, or anything. And what do you think the children are learning? The same thing. They're learning that you can fuss out and cuss out and fight and slam doors and just act a fool. That's what the children are learning. But they're learning nothing about building, planning, taking a wife, having children, marrying your children off, and seeking peace. Nothing about that. It's not even talked about in order, nor is it done in order, nor is it even on the radar of how the expectations, the purposes, and the vision of a Hebrew supposed to be. And look, the saddest part about it is you can never escape it. Watch this. In the book of Ecclesiastes, the 1st chapter. The 9th verse.
The thing that has been, it is that which shall be.
The thing that has been is that which shall be. Fool, why can't you understand that? You're not doing nothing new. You think you smarter than everybody, and you're not. People came before you. Watch what it says.
And that which is done is that which shall be done.
All you doing is acting like the former fools that came before you, rather than acting like the former good way, good souls, good people, wisdom in which came before you. Continue reading.
And there is no new thing under the sun.
And there's nothing new that you can come up with and came up with that some slick way. Now you don't got to listen to nobody. You know better. And you're not wrong. And how you're right. There's no better way. Period. The better way came before you. Just like a lot of people came before you. And if you want to know that better way, you better start talking to the people that came before you and learning from them. In the book of Deuteronomy, turn there. I was astonished when my daughter asked me this. And the reason why, because I just assumed that everybody knew this. But then I realized the moment she asked me, the moment I knew that nobody knows this. Because if they knew this, why aren't they doing this? Watch what this says in the book of Deuteronomy 32. The 7th verse.
Remember the days of old.
In other words, the word remember means to memorialize, to remember the days of old.
Consider the years of many generations.
Yeah, just look at the past generations. Just consider everything they were doing.
Ask your father, and he will show you.
Yeah, ask your father, and if your father's not there, ask your uncle. If your uncle is not there, ask your brother. If your brother is not there, ask the other generations. In other words, your father and your brother and your uncle, they was part of another generation than you were. So ask them. Consider the many generations.
Your elders, and they will tell you.
Your elders, and they will tell you. You don't have to try to figure out this way by yourself, nor do you have to make the foolish mistakes of the past. You actually can get this thing right. See, a wife today don't have to be in destitute and despair. She actually can be wise if she listen, if she want to learn. But if she don't, you know what she gonna be? In the despicable condition of the foolishness that came before her. That's the cycle in which she will learn and repeat. And likewise, the foolish men. You don't have to lead in a way that is wrong. You're only leading that way because you refuse to listen. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask your father, and he will show you. Your elders, and they will tell you. Because this thing is not life, it's not difficult. We're only confused by our own wicked, evil devices. But if you want to know the truth, just seek the old paths. See and walk therein. And I can assure you, you're going to have rest for your souls. But remember, but they say we will not walk therein. And today, we're plagued with a generation who refuse to seek the old paths, and plagued with a generation who say they're not going to walk therein. Therefore, the confusion persists. So until tomorrow, Yahweh love you, and so do I. Shalom.